When I was a younger man, I don't think I understood the Fantastic Four. And I think part of the reason I didn't understand the Fantastic Four was more than likely the family dynamic. Now, my first foray into Fantastic Four, I didn't get it at all. It did not gel with me. I personally thought the family was kind of goofy. This is also what I thought of the book in general for many years. It wasn't until, well, let me back up a little bit. So at some point as a young man, I got into the book, right? Like I realized that some of these stories were some of Marvel's greatest stories. And they really hit, struck home runs. They were all good. But sometimes there are heroes that you don't understand, and you might even be inclined to say, "Oh, this is trash." That's widely overstated. I think that term is used a lot because people don't like or understand something, but doesn't necessarily mean it's trash. And like I said, as I've aged, I've grown. I realize there's a lot about some characters I don't understand, and because of that, I may view the characters in a not a negative light, but not the best light. I don't even know if that's the best way to put it, but I think you understand what I'm saying. The characters just miss me. I don't get them. I look over them, but I've learned, okay, let me let that sit for a little bit and give that character some time because I may actually come back and figure out, oh, I actually like this character. I just didn't know what was going on. Fantastic Four, one of those teams, and the Thing primarily is one of those characters that instinctively I thought he was kind of lame. Just keeping it real. That's always what I thought. And you might think that is crazy talk. And now looking back, that is crazy talk. Again, over the years, like the character more. And I understand even more about the Thing from my 3 minute origin video about the Thing. I have to do a lot of research for those videos and try to condense as much information as possible, what I think is the most important things in that 3 minute video. But in doing that, I I get more of the nuance of characters I didn't get before, like Blade. I was never really big into Blade. A lot of characters that focused on things like that, vampires and all of that stuff, just never my thing. And I'm not even gonna tell you it's my thing now. Now, the original Blade movie was fire. I was in the military when that movie came out. I was in tech school, and man, that movie was fire. I loved that movie at the time. Never still didn't get into collecting Blade books at that time, but as I'm doing research for a 3 minute narrative video on Blade, I'm like, yo, there's so much to this character that you can miss. And when I was young, look, when I was young, when I got into a book, here's how it got me. The cover art was good, the internals were good, and that story in that moment was good. I didn't necessarily go back to get the backstory. Now, over the years and over reading comic books, I've amassed more knowledge and got some of the backstories, but there's still a lot of characters that I didn't go back and really look into. So there is a new Thing book. I'm not sure if it released today. I think that's the case, but don't quote me on that. Or on the 21st, I think it was released. Don't quote me on that. I might have to go to my comic book store, check and see if it's there. But I'm going to read this article from CBR talking about the Thing. I have a new respect for the Thing as a character. I think he's undervalued. I can definitely say as a character, the Thing was undervalued by me. I didn't understand his appeal. It's and there's so many characters throughout the years that this has happened to me with that I dig into and I'm like, yo, it's a better character than I thought. And there's some characters that I always knew were good, but just didn't really read. And now that I'm buying more books, I'm like, yo, this is actually fire. Anyway, I'll talk forever before getting to this article. This article from CBR.com, Ben Grimm clobbers the Marvel Universe in Thing number one. I like what was done with Ben Grimm and his powers in the Ultimate Fantastic Four. And part of me hopes and wishes that they could bring some of that into the main Marvel universe, some of what happened in that book. We'll see. Who knows what's gonna happen, if that will happen, if that will work out. But I think that would be dope. This article is written by Joshua Kazimi. Ben Grimm is on his own, off on his own to track down a missing girl and uncover a mystery from his past in The Thing Number One, written by Tony Fleecs, drawn by Leonard Kirk, and cover by Nick Bradshaw. After a long day of fighting off some vicious space aliens, Ben Grimm, aka The Thing, is exhausted. He and the rest of the Fantastic Four decide to head back to the Baxter building for some much needed rest. Unfortunately for Ben, the rest is short lived. An old bully from Ben's childhood knocks on the door, desperate. He needs to track down a missing girl. Out of the kindness of his heart and fond memories of the girl's mother, Ben decides to help. Instead, he finds the beginnings of a dangerous mystery. And this is where I think Marvel is beginning to get, and some of the writers are beginning to get, people want some interesting and compelling stories. Ben Grimm in something like this may really work. It might not land, but as I said, this is something that I may actually go check out, and hopefully this is actually a good book. The premise actually sounds like a good book. Because for Ben Grimm, you don't need the most, you don't need the deepest story on the world, and you don't need a whole lot of twists and turns. But let's see what the article says. There's a lot of great stuff laid out in the beginning of this issue. The idea of a huge bounty on the Thing's head being broadcast to an entire network of seedy characters is just exciting. This is a clean premise with built-in tension that doesn't have to be explained. On top of that, readers now have this in the back of their minds as they read on. They know all roads will lead to this point. It is great. It's great to get into this fight late, but the beats of the story regarding the Thing are then spelled out for the reader. The dialogue is filled with unnecessary exposition instead of letting the action speak for themselves. Sue and Ben state the subtext of the scene. The Thing is concerned about the ongoing threat of these space squids, while also holding back due to self-doubt. This is a strong starting point for the Thing in keeping with who readers know the character to be. It's strong enough to stand on its own without the on-the-nose dialogue. Sometimes, and there will be many that disagree with this, sometimes on-the-nose dialogue actually works for me. I don't mind it. I like it even. I'm not going to say I prefer it, but at times this actually lends really well to the story. I would argue that even sometimes on the nose commentary, not throughout a whole entire book, but sometimes it's actually needed to help the reader along a little bit. Now, I don't think, look, people who read comic books can figure things out. You don't have to hold people's hands, but sometimes it's good. It's good to throw in there. The opening does manage to stick the landing in its final scene. The Thing returns to the Baxter building ready to rest, and readers get to see Ben be a person. He showers, feeds his cat, gets a couple of minutes of shut-eye. These beats are really effective and remind fans of the human inside the pile of rocks. So once he opens the door, sees his own bully, and closes the door on him, it makes sense. It makes sense that the kid that's still inside the Thing is holding on to that childhood pain. But besides, best of all, is it's really rewarding to see Ben ultimately step up and be a hero anyway when he discovers that a little girl needs help. At a nearby bar, the Thing confronts someone they believe will have information about the missing girl's whereabouts. When this guy turns out to be a superpowered gladiator and knocks the thing across the room, Ben gets a flash of his childhood. I like that angle. I like that angle, kind of giving you more depth to the character. I do like, some people don't like this, but I do like when characters from teams get their own book and you get a little bit more backstory about what was going on with them. You know, how all of these things transpired, how things worked out with them. I don't mind that. I don't mind that at all. Okay, the beats harmonized. Is that where I was? It's another great beat that humanizes the thing, but it also benefits from matching artwork. The style of these particular panels deviates from the contemporary style throughout the rest of the issue and takes a period appropriate style equipped with half-tone dots. It's not a new idea in contemporary comic books, but its execution here is effective nonetheless. I can dig it. I can dig it. Sometimes using, a different style. The plot from this point on unfolds in a very satisfying way. Readers think that the thing is going to see a friend of a friend who might know something about a missing girl, but it turns out that that friend is Gladiator. Their fight seems to be too much for the thing until he reveals that he's been holding back yet again, this time out of respect for the bar. Then it's revealed that the entire fight is being relayed up the ladder to none other than Kingpin himself. Look, man, when you involve Kingpin, especially when it's done right, you get such a great story. Kingpin is one of those characters that you can kind of plop into a story that may be somewhat mediocre, and Kingpin adds an element that's like, okay, now you got my attention. Now I want to know what happens next. It's a big reveal that adds another log onto the growing fire. By the end of this first issue, there's so much to be intrigued by, and so many reasons to look forward, goodness, to the next issue. The twists and turns here aren't just twisty and turny; they escalate the story and tension with each step, which makes for an exciting and engaging read. Yo, this might be a book worth actually picking up and checking out. I will check my comic book store, check this book out, and if it's good, I will definitely let you know.